Hey folks, how you doing out there today? Remo back, and we are going to be doing another Remo builds video here. Thought it might be fun to take you all along on the build of the small ATV off-road type course with some bank corners, some jumps. This camp is going to be part of the Highway Haulin 2 region map 2. There's going to be a bunch of camping, a few tasks, and a good place to smack some trucks around, as well as a good RP place once you get the area back up and going, which is going to be basically what the tasks are based off of. Now, I started building this course, and I stopped and realized that some of the mod makers especially may benefit from watching how I do this process a bit. It's pretty much all roughed in by hand. We're going to essentially do a quick build through here, and then we'll go for a test in game at the end, try the track out. Always have to adjust this a few times, but we'll see how we make out on the first shot. So first thing we work on is getting these corners banked. Now when you're moving ground, you basically want to do this very slowly. So we're going to use like a 13, a 6 brush, and we're going to keep the fall off wide so that we get a nice smooth kind of hump. And we're just going to come along the corners, and we're going to work first on banking the corners. When you're moving ground, what I was going to say earlier, and you've started, like you've clicked on it and you've started like this, to really come in and smooth everything, you need to actually click and let the game render it properly. Once you've moved ground, it doesn't react properly until you click, let the game add it in, and then come back on it. So what we're going to do the first round is we're going to go around, we're going to rough bank all the corners. We're going to click and let it load in like this. And then we're going to go through and kind of smooth the corners up and adjust the road. So back, like I said, around a 13 brush is pretty good. You do want to maybe go up one notch up to 28 and just kind of fill in the mound behind a bit, and that's more for realism. We'll put some texture to the ground, some up and down contour, I guess would be the word, later on. But first we're just going to get this track put together. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to go over this a few different times. The bottom line is you just want to slowly pull it up basically on the edge of the road. And I've built these I built a little course like this in the Moto Park map that I made. It's kind of fun because you can get on a pretty good rhythm. The bank corners are pretty good if you spend the time placing them in there properly. They really can hold you in, and you can go quite quick around turns. The transition you just want to feather out. Again, we're going to make it a lot nicer later on, all these bumps. This section I figured a small mud run. We're not going to make this deep mud, something you can still go fast, so we're going to bring it down a little bit so that we're actually in a bit of water here. And we'll add in the mud after. Again, we're just going to rough the course in first. We'll put a few trees around to give it a little ambience when we go in game and try the map. This might be a fun little jump out, so I think we'll just smooth it a little bit. Now we want to go to our plus 13 again. You want to kind of start just as the corner's starting, maybe a little before, and the bank kind of gets bigger as you go around the middle. If you click and hold while you're in height mode, it'll kind of act like the flatten tool a bit. Right now I'm basically clicking over and over and over to kind of bring this up evenly. Just keep working your way around. If you try to rush it, ends up just getting messy with areas sticking out further than you want. And even though it takes a bit, it's the quickest way to do it because it'll be a lot less messing around after. And that looks like a pretty good angle. Back up to 28 and we'll just put a little dirt in around the back. And make it look a little more realistic. I think we want to do a little bit further around the corner. Just kind of feather it in. Now we're doing this corner. Okay, so that drops down. So quickest way to deal with this is go to flatten tool. We're going to put our fall off a little bit lower. That's just going to at least quickly bring our corner up. I want this one to be a mess up means you're going into the swamp. Just going to bring this one up a little quicker because we're just going to raise it up and then we're going to reflatten it so we have a good starting point here. Alright, so we'll just do our banked corner, and again I'm just clicking lightly. Let's go back to 13, that's going a little too quick. And what we'll do after is we can move the roads around and make them sit a little higher up on the banks. Just make everything work a little bit better. Again, the last time I did this, I was probably playing around with it 2 or 3 times. Going in game, back out, fixing some areas. Like there you can see that bump we're going to have to smooth in later. And we're on our last corner. I will put in a couple jumps here. We'll go back through any of the straight stretches. I kind of want to make this trail work both ways. And I'll probably play around with it quite a bit more than what you're going to see today. This just shows you kind of the build process on something like this. We want to bank that just a bit more. Okay, so let's see where we can put a couple jumps. This is going to be, where's the straight stretch? I see a part I didn't do very well. Just come along here a little bit more. You do want to have it enough that the vehicle gets sideways and the G-force essentially sticks it down. And it does work. This is probably a good spot to do a jump. Let's do it right out of the corner. So what we're going to do is bring the ground up. We're going to use our flatten tool to kind of give an abrupt edge. So this is where we want it to be a fairly straight edge. Actually, you know what? We want it to go both ways. We're gonna make more of a tabletop. Let's do that. And this one's not really about getting huge air on, it's more driving challenges to go around. I'm gonna put a timer on these too, because it'd be kind of fun. Guess if you need to make a few more bucks, there'll be a small reward for it. You're in hard mode playing the highway Haulin region. This area is gonna be, after the tasks are done, just about role play and fun and maybe a little truck testing. Just kind of flatten this trail out here. Okay, so let's call that good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through real quickly with the smooth tool. We're just going to lay everything in a little bit smoother around the corners. Then we'll go back, adjust some of the roads so that they're sitting on the banks properly. Throw in a few trees and a little bit of mud down here, and then we'll go for a run in the game and see what it looks like. So we go down to our smooth tool. We want it to be pretty small. And I think we want the fall off to be fairly abrupt, because we want to flatten the corner without bringing it down too far. Just real quick through, transition to the other way. I find the key to these is you just don't want any abrupt bumps, and you usually go around the corner pretty smooth. Like we said, we want the players to get right up on the corner. We got a little jump right there. And back into another turn. Should be a fairly fast track, I think. I'm thinking like John Hot Rod's little Baja runner. The Bronco. Probably going to be my truck that I'm going to take through here first. These tight transitions are a little tough. You want to give them a little bit of flat spot for the transition. Again, we're just clicking. We're not holding the button and dragging. We just want to slowly kind of flatten it out in small areas, because we don't want to flatten out our banks. We're going to put a little bit more on this one. Oh. Transition back down. It's another one that hits into a corner the opposite way. It is fun to drive when you kind of bank the corners against each other. This should be one of those tracks where you're probably not going very fast, but it's going to feel pretty fast. You get a rhythm on it. Again, just light clicking. Here's our jump. We don't want to get rid of that up too much. We're going to leave the swamp the way it is because we want it to be bumpy. And this is the stuff that you just gotta kind of take a little bit at a time, work it in until it's good. Probably the next section I'm going to work on this map is getting the drill rig area kind of set up. Essentially, I start with the roads and the rivers and lakes, because they're going to kind of like the lakes and rivers set the height of water on the map more or less, right? You can have ponds at different elevations, but the main river and such is going to kind of set the height, and then you work on picking your areas where you're going to put your factories and stuff. You can see that's where the oil rig's going to be, over in this area. Then you work on the road systems. So we're pretty good there right now. I think what we want to do is add in some trees and some bushes and stuff, and we'll just kind of fill the area in. Not going to put rocks or anything on this track because I want it to be pretty quick, but not damage your suspension before you get all the way around it. So actually, first let's do the mud. So to do mud, we're going to click on the mud button in the geometry list. Automatic is mud you can see, like trails. Extrude is hidden mud that you're not actually going to see till you drive into it. So what we want to start with, I'm going to keep my brush small because it helps with variety, and I want to keep the fall off up again so it helps with variety. So we're just going to kind of feather it in. You do not want the mud the same depth everywhere. Now in the editor, basically these little lines are depth. So if I do 2 lines, most vehicles are going to, be close to halfway up the wheel. So you're gonna have a challenge for most trucks, but the big guys aren't. They should walk through it pretty good. The deepest you can go, like let's put a deep spot over here, that is 3 lines. That'll get anything stuck. That's like up to the hood deep. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to make this so you can still run through it pretty quick. So we're probably not really going to go over 2 lines. But the key with putting in mud that is fun to drive through is variety of depth. So what we do is I use a small brush, and it takes a lot longer, but it gives you a much better product. The other thing, if you're doing a large area, is you can paint a spot like this and then come in with a smaller brush and run around quick and give it some variety. But all in all, having random depths, like a spot like this can catch 1 tire, but you may have a tire on a less deep spot, so it gives more of a feel that the truck is crawling through the mud rather than having not enough mud or just stuck dead, which isn't fun either if it's just super deep. Some spots are fine, but you don't want a whole trail just being hood deep mud. So again, I'm gonna go through this swamp much closer eye on depth than I'm doing right now. And as you get out in the swamp, it's gonna be deeper. And there'll be some spots that'll get you stuck dead. There are gonna be at least 1 recovery out here. And this is actually the swamp that I was looking at maybe making one of the wooden bridges come all the way across as an option to build to give you better access rather than just through the swamp. As you can see, it's surrounded. It will be an issue. So we're not too bad for a test run here. laying in mud like this is also something that I kind of go at multiple times in the same area, working it in a little more random. You do want to be mindful, like when you're going through the water spots, they're probably maybe going to be a little muddier than the ground sticking out areas. But all in all, you know, typically when you're going through a mud area, and you would think it would be a lot deeper here than up here most of the time, so keep that in mind when you're mudding stuff up. Is also sometimes, I know with the dev maps, if you go off the trail, there's like no mud, like they basically just mud up the trail. I make sure mud goes where it should, that way if player wants to try and hop out of the trail, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's not, just like it would be in real life. We don't want to put much mud up here because we want them to be able to come out of the water swampy area pretty quick. Maybe get a jump off of that. So that's good. So we're going to let that load in, and then we're going to paint in the mud tracks, the tire marks and stuff. Then we'll throw in a little bit of swampy plants, make it dark water, like mud colored water. Throw in a few trees, and then we'll hop in game and we'll see how our first stab at this went. The trail's got some flow or not. Now my thoughts on this trail, I'm probably gonna put some of those like rocks and stick piles and stuff that you can make disappear across the track, and it'll maybe be kind of a task to bring. I don't know, I was thinking, I think I mentioned it in another video, was maybe the trash cans to come out here and clean up, open up the track again, and once you do that you get your timer. Help you invest in this off-road park. Maybe have more fun playing it afterwards, since you had to build it back up to get it going. And it's been suggested a lot, but I think it has some replay value in terms of if you enjoy the RP thing. Now they do have a quick mud setting, which kind of does tire tracks automatically, but I like to do them myself. A little more control. They just do kind of random tracks going a lot of different ways, and I just prefer this. So that's our mud trail done. Now what we should do is put mud in under this water instead of grass texture, because it's something that I have to do. It won't take long here. We'll just do it real quick. And it really helps sell you can see through the water, although the muddy water is not that easy to see through, but again, it helps sell the look. You wouldn't have grass under. Let's see which one I have mud in. So we want to use a different distribution here. So we're going to paint it this color. This basically just changes what the textures are. When I'm building, you got to make the first two the same on all the textures, and that way you can, at least the first one, so if I put grass on any of these textures, it's the same, so they can feather together. They have the same leading one. And then when you get further down the list, this has gravel and mud. Well, we want mud. So we'll just do that real quick. Let it load in. Pick that one again, go to mud. You want to have a fairly high fall off when you're putting in textures like this, so you don't get rough edges. It should be kind of a natural edge. So that's all we want to do, is just kind of come through here in any spot that has water. It's going to end up being muddy because the grass isn't going to grow under the water, and I got to go through the whole swamp and do this. I'm not going to make you watch that right now. Again, it's one of those jobs that you could spend too much time being perfect, but random is good. Don't overthink it. We'll just go a little bit further over, just for visual when we drive through here. Okay, so that's a real quick shot on that. Good enough to give you the gist of what's going on. Now we do need to add wetness to this or the mud won't work. And we're in a swamp, so the majority of it's going to be pretty wet. And then we're just going to feather it. Again, clicking, not holding the button. So we get a kind of a blended edge. And then everywhere in the swamp is just going to be soaking wet. And that, the wetter it is, the muddier the mud is. Thicker, harder to drive through. And if you don't put any wetness, it basically doesn't really act like mud. So it's an important step in the process. And once the grass spawns and you get some plants in there, you won't notice that sharp wet edge, but this whole thing's going to be wet eventually. Okay, so let's throw in some swamp stuff. So let's start with the canes, which are the cattails, bulrushes. And these will spawn partially in the water, but not on the roads. So you don't have to be too careful. I like to do some on land, some in water. A spot like this is the ground's going to be wet enough that that stuff will kind of grow up on it too. You don't want to overdo it with canes, bulrushes, cattails. Although some sections you can go a little deeper or heavier with it. Okay, so I should have scaled them around in size a bit more, but it'll be fine this time. And we're going to put in some swamp trees. Again, these I have given them the ability to spawn in the water. So kind of dead trees and ferns and stuff. And just kind of label them in a bit. Don't have to be too precise. These will throw a bit of scale too, because we remembered. Just random, completely random. Then you're going to see a little bit more life around it. Could do a few more of those. That's why I didn't have my density turned up very much. When you're painting distributions, I usually put the fall off pretty much 0, so things spawn where you more or less want them to. So there's a little bit more of the trees and stumps and whatnot. Now all we have to do is turn it to muddy water. It's as simple as that. This whole swamp's going to be muddy water eventually. Just do where we need right now. So there's our swamp. We'll add some bushes and stuff in after. So let's, oops, bad place to start. Now this is a challenging part that you just get used to while building, is the way the colors change, you can't really see overlays and stuff, but just kind of make a mental note of where it is. I had this filled in, that's why all this scaling's here, but it makes it even harder. If you have troubles dealing with it, what you can do is turn the scale all the way down. It just means you have a bit more rescaling to do, but if you see, if I do that, I can see through. So when I'm doing towns and stuff, especially, and I don't want things to be through fences, I just do scale it all the way down, and then you can see what the heck you're doing. Then you just gotta scale it back up after, everything will be small and the same size. So again, I'm probably going to use these hills for some hill climbing areas. But we're just putting a little ambience in here for our trip around the track, our first run through. We messed up right here, get it back. And these are just pine trees and stuff, so we're just, again, totally random. Trees are not going to spawn everywhere those marks are. It's random as well, so don't overthink it. Probably not going to have many big pine trees in the swamp really, unless they're larger ground areas. So I usually try to keep them out. These ones will not spawn in water anyways. So then we're just going to scale it back up real quick. Maybe a little bigger brush. I don't want everything to be small. Trees, this map's going to generally have bigger trees than the first one, so we'll let those spawn in. Throw in some bushes as well. These, if they got across the trail, aren't as big of a deal, because you can drive through bushes. They're not a showstopper. Again, these won't spawn underwater, so that's why I'm not being too careful in the swamp. You can be if you want. They should just randomly spawn. But for the sake of speeding things up, I'm just going to label it in here real quick. And we'll throw a little scale. I've said it many times before, the more random the better. The thing is, do things one way, turn the screen, do them the other way, then you'll have a lot of crisscrossing, so you will get variety. So that's more or less what our track's going to look like. We're pretty much ready to go for a run. You know what, let's put the trees a little bit tighter. I think we'll appreciate it when we go in game. This will be our first trip around the new track, the off-road park that, as I've said, is going to have some tasks, some role play, a bunch of camping. You saw all the spots at the start there. Just got to kind of build everything and then put the trees around it. Helps with visibility. It's usually the way I attack things. Okay, I'm going to rebuild and stuff, and when I see you, we'll be back in game. We'll take the Bronco around the track and see if we did good or not. Alright, so as promised, here we are out in the Bronco. Just doing a quick little lap around this figure 8 track that I kind of made up. Might be a little bit bigger than I was thinking it would be. I don't know. Should I leave it the way it is? Tighten it up a little bit, make for a smaller track? Could be good for multiplayer. That little trail we went by there is going to be kind of a crawling up over the top of the hill time trail for the off-road camp, and here we are on our new track. Full disclosure, I went through this once and did not do very good, so this is my second run through here. Still not doing that good, but it's going to be one of those ones as we kind of roll it in, smooth it out a bit more. It should be a little easier to drive. Definitely need more jumps on it. It's just hard to scale how much room you have when you're in game. Some of these corners I should bring around the banked corner a little bit further around the corner, but definitely more jumps needed in this. Not doing too bad now, hitting a rhythm. Oh, there's that tabletop. Good depth on the mud. I do have the cheater tires on though, so I wonder if maybe I should lighten it up a bit. Got the red line, everything on this one. Overall, for the first stab at it, pretty happy. Let me know what you think out there of the starting of this little off-road camp. Probably next video will be this area a lot closer to being finished, and you can see how you make it out here on the road system. Anyways, take it easy. We'll talk to you all again real soon.